Hello and welcome to Chicago Reacts. My name is Lauren and today I am going to be watching a video entitled I Remade Monsters Exactly as Described in the Book. So I am feeling this is going to be one of those, book to movie or book to TV show issues, and I want to see what these monsters actually look like. We are doing this in the spirit of Halloween because it is spooky season and I love spooky season. So let's go and see how these monsters differ. If you have not already, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and let me know what you want to see next. Also, don't forget to show love to the original creators of these. Let's go.
Hi, I'm going to draw pictures today. Now, in previous months, I've been doing this challenge where I draw characters based on only their descriptions in the books. Now, the twist on this, as opposed to some other videos on YouTube that do that and do it really well, is that I have the help of a team to prepare them for me so that I actually don't know the characters I'm drawing, and I guess them. And I thought it'd be fun to give it a crack, but this time from monsters in the books. Monster number one is a vaguely human-like shape, scaly, rubbery body, a face of a mass of feelers and tentacles, giant claws on front and back feet, long narrow wings. They're like a mountain walking or stumbling.
All right, so it sounds kind of like a mind flayer, not gonna lie, but except for the walking part, because they float.
Guess as to who it is, but I'm going to treat this as my design brief. I'm your monster designer. Let's get to work. Now, in getting started, I really want to try and stick as closely to the prompt as possible. With this monster being described as vaguely human, I put a human shape on the page so I could reference that and just started playing with silhouettes that were vaguely human. I find it helpful to split the prompts up to the ones that sort of pair naturally together. So in this case, the vaguely human shape aspect sort of mixes with the visual of it being like a mountain walking or stumbling. And then we have giant claws on what is described as the front and back feet. Now, I started drawing a bipedal sort of character, but factoring in front and back feet, humans don't have front and back feet. Quadrupeds have front and back feet. So I leant towards a bit more of a almost werewolf-ish vibe, where when a human turns into a werewolf or a wolf, there's sort of like this middle phase where they could either be on all fours or sort of crouching using what would otherwise be the hands as sort of front legs. This, I think, also walks the line of being vaguely human and enhancing a strong silhouette.
Also, I really love that we're seeing his silhouette work here. I haven't thought about silhouette work in a long time. Back when I was doing costume design, I did a lot of silhouette shapes, and I actually was reasonable at it, but I haven't practiced that in a really long time. But it's such a good idea, and I love watching I like watching his process. And that's really cool. Oh, the silhouette tape is such a good idea. I forgot how useful that was, not gonna lie. Like, that was really incredibly useful when it came to designing, like, costumes. So, that's, I might need to get back into it.
To give that feeling of a mountain, like walking. Then we get to some of the other details. A face with a mass of feelers and tentacles. Now, this is the dead giveaway. This is Cthulhu, right? But I'm really trying to approach this without having that in my head. Now, obviously, the first thing that comes to mind.
I was trying to, like, not say Cthulhu. I really was. I don't care if you believe me or not, but I did think Cthulhu, but then I thought maybe that was too obvious.
With tentacles is a squid or an octopus, and I literally drew an octopus and it literally looks like Cthulhu. So I can see exactly why the visual of Cthulhu is what he is. I tried playing.
I was also just thinking, like, I was also trying to imagine it, because it didn't say anything about, like, a face, it just said the face is full of feelers. I was literally, so, like, face full of feelers, I'm not even putting eyes on that thing. It's tentacles all the way down. Like, I'm not even, because the first thing I thought of was Davy Jones from Pirates 2, but then I thought, like, okay, if we're doing just exactly what it says, I'm not giving it eyes. It just has a face full of tentacles. Just tentacles.
With the idea of it being like the front of the mouth being the underneath of a squid, like it all opens up kind of like the Demogorgon from Stranger Things, but it seemed to lack sort of strength of silhouette. I also played with the ideas of feelers instead of eyes inset in the face, kind of like snails have poking out of the head. Then the final challenge was the wings, which I hadn't even played with yet when putting the silhouette together.
Also, I didn't remember Cthulhu having wings. I never even thought of Cthulhu having wings. I think that's why. Okay, so the first thing I thought was Cthulhu when I saw tentacles, but then it talked about wings, and I was like, that's not Cthulhu. Shows what I know.
I feel like to a degree, I was trying to force myself to do something different. And in this instance, I was turning the arms or the front legs into sort of webbed arms that act potentially as wings to sort of swim through the water or glide through the air. At the end of the day, I feel like forcing all these mishmashes together kind of weakened the overall feel. It didn't feel like an imposing monster. It just felt like too many things demanding my attention. So in the end, I took the things that I thought were working the best and were definitely true to the prompt, and then moved away from aspects I thought were confusing. Slipping this time over to my wet medium sketchbook so I could play with some liquid graphite. Specifically because I wanted this to feel like a storm background with falling rain, enhancing the silhouette of this imposing mountain-like monster.
Cool.
With my monster sketched in, as you can see, there's a lot of elements that are reminiscent of the Cthulhu we're familiar with, but I really tried to just stick as closely to the prompt as I could. Vaguely human-like shape, I think that's vague enough. The silhouette is much more mountain-like. Giant claws on the front and back feet, and I feel like I've walked that line of the arms being kind of a mix of legs and arms. The face is definitely a mess of feelers and tentacles, and the scaly body becomes apparent, especially as all the shading comes together. And as a finishing touch, I accentuate the silhouette and the intensity of the scene, with my white paint pen making raindrops to also enhance the perspective and add the pitter-patter of the splashing rain on the surfaces.
That's cool. That looks really, really cool. I like the rain.
Now, using just those descriptors, I came up with this, which, okay, monster description 1, it's Cthulhu. However, that's interesting. Now, this is an illustration of Cthulhu I've seen a few times. I didn't realize he was that big. I really like that depiction. But you know what? I really like my depiction too. And I feel like anyone would look at it and know it's Cthulhu.
I like that. I think, yeah. I mean, especially if you put like a little tiny guy in there for scale. I always imagine Cthulhu as absolutely, like, huge, because like the whole point of it, he's an eldritch being, right? So like our brains aren't even supposed to be able to comprehend him correctly. So like, I mean, I always just thought of him as like, if people like, you know, if a person's the size of a thumb and he's the size of a person, you know, that's how I always kind of, that's where he's in my brain.
And in fact, if he was like submerged by like the water by that much or whatever, and that was coming out, I feel like that would be pretty daunting and get a similar vibe. Interesting though, that I just drew Cthulhu. Like, I just drew exactly what you might expect he would be. And I followed all the rules. So what that tells me is, I guess, as the author described Cthulhu, and it's exactly as we've all known ever since. So well done, author. Moving on to monster number 2. This monster is like a great shadow. Dark human-like form inside a giant moving shadow. It's very shadowy monster. Shadows are scary. Fiery, streaming mane. Burning whip in one hand. Okay, we know who this is. Flame-like sword in the other.
Do we?
Shadow around it like two vast wings. This is the Balrog. You shall not pass. You shall not.
Oh.
Balrog. And in the Lord of the Rings movie, it's so iconic. Like, it's so memorable.
I didn't know. I didn't put that together. Probably because, like, I mean, I know that he's described as a shadow in the book, but like in the movie, he's so very defined. So like, I wasn't picturing him as like a ghosty shadow.
Designed that it's going to be hard to pull my biases to design something that feels like that. What does my version of this monster look like? It's going to be hard. Let's give it a go. On to monster number 2. We again begin with that very helpful prompt of something that is human-like. So there you go, there's a human. Let's work from that. Now this is interesting. Obviously, I know this is the Balrog from Lord of the Rings. There's usually just one thing that gives it away. In this case, it's the whip and the sword. What I find really interesting is it's lacking specific things from the Balrog I'm familiar with from the movies. These prompts don't entail horns. They don't entail anything sort of clawed or jagged.
Right.
If anything, it's
Like, movie Balrog was like demon-esque, or like traditionally demon-esque. This was all shadow. So I was literally imagining like a dark silhouette in just like literally moving shadow. Like I wasn't picturing even barely hands, honestly.
It seems to be kind of incorporeal, with a constant emphasis on shadow, which is mentioned 3 times, and smoky. The only things giving it any sort of shape or highlights are the flames and the weapons. So in the end, I actually only have 3 things to focus on, but they have to work really well. Specifically, the shadow vibe. This has to be a creature of darkness emerging from the shadows with a dark human-like form inside a giant moving shadow. It is darkness and shadow. And yet it has a fiery streaming mane. Fire is light, which sort of obviously fights against the idea of shadow, but I like the idea that this fire, this intensity is bursting out but constantly being engulfed and battling against the darkness that is this being. So when it comes to the sword and the whip, it just feels a little weird to be making them too solid or distinct. If anything, I felt like it made the most sense for them to be objects of fire and shadow themselves. This entire being is darkness bursting with a hell-like fire that keeps being recontained in itself. To picture how I imagine this thing moving in terms of the smoke and the darkness, there's this VFX clip that circulated on social media that has smoke pouring out of a human that's sort of walking around or dancing. I forget what it is specifically.
I mean, he's just jaunty, like, that's good. I like that. That is what it seems like. He's correct.
I'll see if I can find it and put it in an overlay here. I picture this being, from the prompt, being more like a giant than the demon of the Balrog that we're familiar with. Hunching and stretching itself forward, slowly moving and billowing towards you. For context, I added Gandalf in the scene just to give us a sense of scale, and with the upwards perspective and with the really deep darkness in my shading and trying to soften that all together to make it really feel smoky, I came back and added the highlights with the white pen to really make the flame pop out and really try and add contrast between the darkest shadows and the brightest edges of flame.
That's pretty good.
So let's have the big reveal, monster description to the Balrog. Okay, so on the left here, we have the Balrog as we know from the movies. On the right is a sort of...
That's kind of cute. Like, he looks kind of like, yes, I'm a Balrog. I like it. I like the artist's rendition a lot better. That one, and that is not scary at all. He looks like he's like doing come hither eyes. Like...
fan art depiction of a Balrog, which is much more like a solid black silhouette of a Balrog. There are horns, even though there's no mention of horns that I know of, but going with just that solid black silhouette and form and really sharp white highlights of the mane and the whip, it's pretty cool. I have to say though,
I like the fact that this one doesn't have like eyes and a mouth. Like I think that's a lot scarier. And I was also imagining something a lot more amorphous. So like this is really cool.
I really like what I ended up with. I hope you feel like I did it well too. I feel like it really represents what it would be in my head if that were the description I was reading and I hadn't seen the movies. Side note, just want to point out how different these vibes are. It just goes to show, like with the liquid graphite and the ink and then the white pen on the left and then just the much more graphite approach blending and highlighted in different ways. Like even though they're both technically just polished sketches, you can get such like really fun, viscerally different textures and really communicate scale and intensity in loads of different ways with sketching. You can give this a crack yourself because sketching is loads of fun, and I put together Jazza's Pro Sketch Pack, including premium sketchbooks, $200 worth of premium pro art supplies, and of course if you want a little bit of help, I created a sketch guide as well to take you through the process of sketching. So go to prosketchpack.com, go check it out, links in the description. Of course, any support is a huge help to the channel. I was so happy with my Balrog result that I thought I'd get some help to push it to the next level. Ooh. Alicia happened to be in the studio and she jumped in, taking my refined sketch and overpainting it in Photoshop to bring the fire and darkness to life.
That's really cool.
As you can see, working from that foundation of the sketch that I'd built, working in the colors and playing with some of the magical tricks of Photoshop with overlays, various ways of painting in some of those fire effects, the result is absolutely stunning. And
that's amazing. I need somebody good at Photoshop, by the way. I can do very limited. I'm limited in Photoshop. I need someone good at Photoshop because I'm trying to do a rebrand of our anime channel, and I'm working on like a logo and a banner. So if you know anybody.
I have to say, personally, if I saw the movie with this version of the Balrog, it's a little less clear than the original demon-looking Balrog, but I think there's something really ominous and looming and dark about it that I love.
Oh, that's so cool looking! I want that as a print, dude. I would have that on my wall.
But now it's time for our lucky last prop. Let's see how close we get with this one. Monster number 3. This monster is tall, delicate, reflective, camouflaging armor that shifts in color with every step. Gaunt, flesh pale as milk, cold bright blue eyes, white mist arising all around. Medieval fantasy. I don't know who this is. Ooh, okay, cool. Well, that means I won't be influenced. Let's design a cool character. Monster number 3.
Yeah, I don't know.
This one feels
I like monsters and stuff. I'm not good at I'm like, I don't know what any of these are until the end. They're like, oh yeah. Oh yeah, I do know that one. I don't know. White mist. I'm trying to remember. You know what? I wish my roommate was here. She studied like medieval like literature and stuff in college.
Kind of lacking in specificity. So the only things that are really distinct are bright blue eyes and the armor. Otherwise, it just sort of seems like a dude. There's no like horns or anything that's particularly monstrous, so I drew a dude. Now, the word gaunt is used often with zombies or with really emaciated beings. So I decided this figure would at least be so deathly looking with such sunken gaunt features that it looks like a skull with flesh wrapped around it like saran wrap. And without the description of a weapon,
that looks like Emperor Palpatine, not gonna lie.
and I figure that with the flesh being so petrifying, perhaps it would be the flesh itself, the creature that is the weapon. There's definitely an energy of dark, cold magic coming from this being.
He does look kind of like the king of the White Walkers in Game of Thrones.
With my illustration in place, I know that there's some bright features to accentuate here, specifically the flesh and the mist. So I went around with my clutch pencil and added a really dark, shadowy forest behind him and softened it all, giving a really sort of blurred, like focal blur look using my blending sticks. This set the stage for me to go in and add some nice polish to my figure, using my alcohol markers in the grays to differentiate the metals and the cloth and keeping the flesh pure white, then finally coming in with those finishing touches. The white mist, some sharper silhouettes, and just that little bit of depth to the gaunt face.
Ooh, so cool! Not gum.
All right, here's the reveal. Now, I'm not 100% sure if my guess is gonna be right with this one. My guess is White Walker from Game of Thrones. And White Walker from Game of Thrones, okay, so my guess.
Oh, dude, okay, it's from a medieval type fantasy. Okay, I literally thought it was from a fantasy, like a monster from a medieval story. Like that. Okay, I misunderstood the assignment.
This was right. Which, I mean, I must have been influenced, like, because I ended up, I think, drawing a White Walker. We got a fan art depiction over here of a White Walker too, very cool. And there is, I guess, my White Walker. I think he's pretty cool. Also just a guy, and that's fine
also just
too.
A guy.
I hope you've had fun. I have had loads of fun, not only trying to interpret and re-depict some of these, but honestly, just like producing final artworks that I'm really proud of, but also that to me capture really different vibes. I want to know what you think. Let me know how I did. Do you prefer the literal interpretations that I've done from the book text, or the things in the movies and TV shows that you've seen? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, that is it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know what else you want to see down in the description. Otherwise, subscribe for more fun with art and creativity and all sorts of shenanigans. And until next time, I'll see you later.
All right. Wonderful. That was really cool. He does have multiple parts of that. So if you want to see multiple parts, or you want to see more, let me know. It looks like he's got a Pennywise featured. He's got Voldemort in a different video. So he's got a couple of these videos, which is awesome. So okay. I thought that was really, really cool. I love art, and I used to paint, I used to draw a lot. Like I said earlier, I did some costume design. I didn't actually sew anything. I'm horrible at sewing. I'm not horrible. I can do it. I just hate it. But I loved drawing. I loved creating costumes. I still, like, to this day, like, if I see something, like, I still take pictures and, like, stockpile things in case I ever get back into designing costumes. So I'm like, oh, this is cool. And I love that he showed his whole process. I like that his drawings they have a very unique style, that is really cool. The reason I stopped drawing is because I started getting really annoyed that I couldn't do it, photorealistically, essentially. And, you know, if I kept practicing, maybe, but I didn't, and I gave up. But if I, like, get out of it needs to be photorealistic and just, like, focus in on, I can do it, I just need to develop my own style, you know, maybe. Anyway. Not important. Thank you very much for watching. I do need to find out if I can get a print of that Balrog thing, because that was really cool. And again, if you want to see more stuff like this, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. If you want more Jazza videos, go ahead and let me know. I might do some of the monster stuff. It's Halloween year. It's Halloween month. I'm going to be doing a lot of monster stuff, so lay it on me, y'all. Lay it on me. Thanks again. I will see you in the next one. Until then, bye.